Hi everyone. Today I'd like to take you through certain things that I've been very curious about. I've been curious to know more and more about how artificial intelligence lends itself a support to coaching. There are many documents that talk about various types of systems and processes. Of all the documents that I've read, if I were to break it down into two parts, part of them talk about its ability to support the coaching process and the coach, whereby its checking mechanisms, its ability to consistently check up on the progress of the coachee, aiding the coach to be able to manage a wider group consistently, are a number of tools that have been brought to the market. The second set of tools that the AI world talks about is on deep learning and its ability for AI to be able to understand and be able to support in the coaching endeavor. Now, as it is for all technology driven tools and techniques, whenever it arrives, there are many skeptics and there are early adopters. I would like to bring this session of perspectives for you to start digging in, and I will leave you certain thoughts that I may have of AI and coaching that you can actually build your own thoughts and revolve around those thoughts to be able to handle this revolutionary change that is happening as we speak. So there are a number of software that I've come across. Software like Fin, which is a part and parcel of ChatGPT 4, which to me lends itself as a tool that supports customers answering questions, so on and so forth. Then I looked at software like Cultivate, where it was a tracking mechanism of behavior, and it'll evolve into behavioral where it listens in on your coaching process, where it listens in on your meetings, gives you suggestions, figures out your behavioral patterns, even goes and does a 360 of the recipients, gives you a feedback of how you could have done better, gives you articles to read, books to read, so on and so forth. Then you have software like Poise, which is also like the two previous tools that I was talking about, where it's a personalized tool that travels with you, that constantly checking out what you say, how you say, your facial expressions, gives you visual cues, thereby improving your communication skills. There are certain tools developed by organizations where the top team is, while it's being coached by coaches, they found that it's very hard to be able to broad base across organizations. So organizations themselves are programming bots of various capacity depending on organizations. I will not mention some of the organizations, but these organizations who have 5,000, 10,000, 20,000 people, many managers and executives, they're bringing the ability for everyone in an equitable world to be able to be coached. It's a wonderful endeavor. And on the other hand, they constantly are learning how coaches work. Now, there are many professionals, and one of their fundamental arguments against AI in general would be you can never, ever substitute human behavior. You can never understand, you can never be present like a real coach is. You will never understand the sensitivities, the nuances, language and its depth of understanding, preferences, underlying areas. So such critiques would turn around and say AI is good if the goals are really stringent, they're very mechanical, can be observed and stretched. Therefore, a mechanized version of a AI coach or AI bot would be fantastic. And they go on to say, however, given the fact that there's always underlying stuff that you can observe, coaching is also a very creative process. So that creativity of where wording, body language, and their vibrations are felt, and you question, you smile, you become silent, dependent on the personality. The number of cues, the number of factors are so high that you can never replace a human coach. My friends, my sentiments are that technology advancement is not always about replacing human beings. This is one of the very traditional thought processes that everyone has in mind when they think about technology. I remember the day that people brought computers to this world and they said all the typewriters will go and people will lose all the jobs with one computer. Probably they were right. That which you can type with 10 typewriters are now able, or at the time was able to be typed by one computer. However, with that entire revolution of IT came a lot of new jobs. Jobs will change. The type of work we do will change. However, all this is not necessarily about replacing human beings. The more you have that kind of fear, no one will embrace technology. And technology is here to stay. Let us look at some of the core foundations of coaching. If you look at ethical practices can be understood, applied, but how it is used in different places could be practiced. And in time, these bots with their deep learning would understand with a very small margin of error. Again, as a support mechanism. Is it only the elite that would be coached? Do we not provide the opportunity for the others? What a wonderful gift we've been given in helping individuals grow and survive in this market and thrive. When we look at creativity and trust and safety, now one would argue that the safety is created and the trust is built one-on-one with human beings. While today, when we wake up, the first thing we look at is sometimes not the partner on the other side of the bed, but necessarily the mobile phone. Now, I'm not saying that is right, but that is so. So technology is a safe place. People go to chat rooms to discuss people who are lonely. There are many people who have had the ability to find friendship, find love, find connection, even through difficult times of corona or otherwise. In this whole game where we are having distant working, offline working, to be there as a companion, not as a replacement to a human being, but someone who's there as a coach to tell you, to work with you. There are softwares like Noah that will help you with your stress management. There are many things. Now there are apps for jet lag, there's apps for food, there's apps for exercising, so on and so forth. This does not mean that the gyms are closing. This does not mean that the nutritionists and the doctors that handle that line of business is going out of business. This just means that we have a new couple of helpers to help us with. So creating trust with a human being is far better and easier. Yes. Sometimes when you know that this bot is not going to judge you, maybe sometimes it's more open to discuss. This is the funny thing. Remember that when you go to church, you can confess to your priest, but even the confession box technically has a veil, traditionally, so that you're not necessarily You'll have to see the person. The absence of seeing the person creates a certain amount of confidence in the person to be able to be open about what they go through. And maybe it embodies a safer environment. A coaching mindset is another area that we coaches quite easily talk about. Being curious, being flexible, being client oriented. Now, here, our curiosity is not only in the individual, as in different coaches will have different levels, their tacit knowledge will be different. Remember, we are not here as coaches, not as mentors or consultants, but as coaches. We're there to help the person, not the problem. Although today there are coaches that say where we coach the problem and not the person, and that's a new way of looking at coaching for some people. But what's most important in coaching is about helping that individual. So the power of listening, the lack of having being distracted by, is probably higher at AI level than all the problems that a human being would have, even as a good coach, when they sit down to coaching. I'm only telling you pluses and minuses and perspectives. It's for us to actually decide. Co-creating a relationship. Someone will say, how can you have a relationship with an AI bot? Yeah. All I would say is relationships, the definition of relationships are very different for each person, right? The type of relationship we have with one to another. You might have a watch that was given to you when you were very, very young by your father, 18th birthday. And maybe you're in your mid-50s right now, but when you look at that watch, even an inanimate object, the amount of affinity feeling you might have, the relationship you will have, is very different to general watches. Now, that is one definition you can counter. That's not a relationship, that's nostalgia. Yeah. So all these English words that we're talking about is basically saying our connection. And our connection will never be the same with humans, human to human. And that has its positives and negatives, is what I'm trying to say. Certain human behavior, by the virtue of their human behavior, may not be great in terms of our coaching. And you know very well, as coaches, sometimes if the personalities don't click, we actually abort. However, in this kind of a thing, there is no personality per se for these bots unless it is programmed to mimic or be someone else. Now, this is what you need to be careful about. What is the actual programming? Listening will be very, very powerful. More so than sometimes a human being may be, because we wear colored lenses and we have our own thought processes. And while we think we are listening, we are actually hearing, but we are putting it into our filters. Consciously or unconsciously, it could happen to the best of us coaches. So therefore, this becomes very important. The questions, invoking awareness. One of the things when you are beginning to coach and you're learning is you're asking, what type of good questions can I ask? And one of the things that your teacher or master will tell you is, be yourself, have this curiosity, the questions will come to you. And yet, throughout the many years of coaching, you're still trying to figure out what would be a fantastic question to ask at that particular moment. What kind of a database and the speed of thinking do you think these bots will have over and above a human being? So I'm sure that they have the ability to create that awareness as well, and the part of learning and growth. So I welcome you to do some study on AI and coaching. And I implore you to start thinking in this fashion. If you let all the IT people and or the non-coaching community to build this software, To us, we will always be skeptic, or we will always feel that it is not of any support to us. So I invite all the coaches of the world to actively engage in the development of this software so that we ensure that this software is valuable to us. So that we create an opportunity for all of us to go through coaching. And the days gone by, we turned around and said, the day we don't have a proper lab and you have dry chemistry, a machine telling you all these blood tests, that will be the day that everything shuts down. Labs are still there and dry chemistry machines are able to give up faster results than ever before. So therefore, these are complementary things that are coming in. Its refinement, its value is purely dictated by how much of time, effort and love we put in to crafting it, for using it, and of course constantly correcting it for it to become better. The continuous improvement process is therefore very, very valuable. For me as a coach who's been doing it for almost 2 decades, I am so happy that AI has also considered the human development angle and are building software. But as usual, those are my perspectives. Question is, what's yours?